Hello everyone, it's Matty from Carpentry Australia. I'm here with the beloved Jesse Jenkinson from Jenkinson Building. Thanks for being here today, mate.
Good to see you again, Matty.
Yeah, good to see you too. Good to see you too. All right, so let's get stuck in. I want to know more about you and about sort of your journey in the building industry and sort of got you into the chippy trade.
Fond memories, actually. So when we were younger, we were doing a renovation on our home, and my oldest brother was I think he was an apprentice carpenter at the time, and my dad employed obviously his boss to do the renovation on our home. And I remember playing in the backyard as a kid. All the boys had been cutting and dropping off, all their little timber offcuts. And I remember a guy came over, he handed me a little hammer, a handful of nails to a kid, and just said, go for it, have some fun, try and build something, They must have seen I really wanted to get my hands in, get dirty or whatever. And I remember just nailing a couple of bits of timber together, pretty average sort of thing, you imagine a couple of offcuts just of standard framing. But I thought I was building boats at the time, So I was putting a couple of bits together and thinking they were awesome. We used to have a pool to the side as well, so I'd nail them all together and chuck them in and, watch them float, and, they'd float around for a little bit, but I don't ever remember fishing them back out or if any nails were sticking out at the time. But I just remember having a ball and thinking, it looks so much fun. Like, I'm watching the guys, climb around. It was a 2-story home at the time, and for a kid, that was, something epic. Yeah. And, playing with blocks or Lego, mate, as soon as they gave me timber and it was bigger and nails instead of just sticking it together, mate, it kind of bled on from there.
How young were you when you started your apprenticeship?
Out of high school, so finished year 12. I was working in stage construction at the time. I think it was the Commonwealth Games, all that sort of stuff were happening at the time. I got this nice gig to help these guys set up the stages at the MCG and at various sporting locations around. So we'll help them set up their little podiums, all that sort of stuff.
It's pretty cool, pretty different to sort of start out. Yeah.
Well, it was mainly sort of, I guess it was kind of like scaffolding and stacking, but it was kind of fun. So started off with that and moved into refrigeration, like air conditioning and refrigeration. I knew I always had a bug or a will to want to do carpentry, and of course my grades in high school for woodwork were
through the roof.
Yeah, it was just awesome.
It's still top of the class to this day.
I don't know. Well, but the passion's there, if you love what you're doing, it's good fun. So I think I was about maybe 2 or 3 years out of high school where a friend said that he had an opportunity. He was doing a carpentry apprenticeship and his boss was looking for another person to jump on board. And I took that in a heartbeat. I think I was out of work for all of 2 or 3 days, and jumped straight on. It was different to what I expected it would be, only because this company was doing steel frames.
Oh, right.
And that was something I wasn't used to at all. I didn't know that was part of carpentry. It was still building homes, but it was all prefabricated frames, but then jumped into windows, lock-ups, and then that actual carpentry, aspect that we all know and love, skirts, hanging doors, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But then, of course, bled into timber frames as well, so 2 years probably on steel frames, 2 years on timber frames, and then a whole lot of customization all in between there.
When did you start Jenkinson Building after that, or did you have a smaller carpentry business beforehand? Or?
As soon as my carpentry apprenticeship was over, the boss was looking for some more younger guys or something, or maybe the pay went up too high, whatever. But it was kind of a blessing in disguise. I started up my own company at that time. I called it something different. I think I called it ATB Constructions or something. It was a little sole builder type.
Yeah.
And I think that lasted for about maybe 6 months to a year, just building decks for sort of people, And then I ended up
mum and dad jobs, the smaller.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, and deck building was a little bit of a specialty at the time because it's what we had a lot of experience doing. So once we built those homes, there was always a nice little deck, and the boss taught us some really, really good skills.
Do you think that's where your sort of leadership kind of skills came from, or at least started? Because I've experienced.
I'm not sure.
I remember coming out on site to a big job that you were doing out where you built that barn. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a sec. But I just remember watching you sort of interact with your apprentices and with your qualifieds, and just how you sort of ran the site. You were probably the most calm, but the most direct in the best possible way. I don't know. I was sitting there going, I want to be a chippy because I want to work for because I want to work for Jesse. So where did it all sort of...
Nice, mate. Nice observation.
No, it does.
The first person to tell me that. I honestly couldn't tell you. No, I think he was my old boss at the time doing the carpentry apprenticeship. I think he was always fair and fun. But I think he just taught great skills. Yeah, he was pretty good at letting us know how and what to do, and we kind of built our reputation through that. So honestly, mate, I've never thought of it like that, but of course he would have contributed.
Yeah, or maybe it was just innately in you as well.
I know that some people are probably born with it, right? But I don't think I ever felt that I had some sort of leadership, you know.
I definitely thought you were a very good teacher. You could tell,
that's nice.
You could tell, and that's something obviously that's carried over from, you know, from that ATB into Jenkinson building, and now sort of where you've broken the mold and you're doing something a little bit, like a bit of a bigger scale thing. So talk us through.
That's true.
Talk us through sort of those last couple of years and being, at that job where you did the big barn and how that actually came to be. I'm really excited for people to know sort of how it came to be and sort of how long you were actually on that job for.
Carpentry, the versatility of carpentry, right? So running Jenkinson building for a good while, jumping into the commercial side of building. Then, like I said, it took me overseas and then really showed me how versatile a building can be. But then coming back from there, I think I just finished up another new restaurant with a couple of groups of guys, you know, who was all part of my team. And I just thought about looking back, trying to find something in the residential area again, something nice, something fantastic. And this is where we crossed a lot of paths. I think we just did a post with you guys, or we caught up somewhere, and I ended up finding in your classifieds on super early days, it would have been like the start of Carpentry Australia or so, something like this. But you had an ad up for a builder looking for carpenters. And I thought, something like that would be nice and easy. They only wanted to do, a quick trial just to help fill in the void. And I thought, I've got a couple of employees. I might jump onto this. We'll see what's going on now while we're still reaching out to find some other work. And lo and behold, we go over there for this interview, and it's an absolute beautiful looking home, big open spaces out.
But it's like
it's
around that area.
Wonga Park.
Wonga Park
is what it was.
It's a beautiful spot.
And just this epically beautiful home, and they wanted us to just sort of help on this barn that was just a frame at the time. We got in there, we saw a little bit of work. Well, it needed a lot of love. I think someone must have rushed the job or whatever, but it needed a good bit of TLC. And the guy hired us straight away, and next thing we knew, we were almost there the best part of 2 years working for this guy. He loved us, we loved him. And it actually ended up being this amazingly gorgeous job, like so much customization, perfectly beautiful materials, exotic materials, real expensive, very high end as well. And started building for him, and then we helped him through builds, I think, over just under 2 years.
Unreal.
So it came out of nowhere, mate, and ended up something really, really amazing. And then of course we told you about that and got you guys back out over to that site.
That's right. So, we did a bit of commercial filming and stuff up there. We did some product and sort of got to see some of the boys out on site. I think it was very cool that there was a job lead, because obviously through CA we've got our jobs board. It's a bit different now, but back then we would send out emails as like our classifieds for job leads that were coming through, and we've never taken any cut from any of these jobs or anything. It's just part of the membership.
Not at all, mate. You didn't even know that was something when I brought you out to that site. I told you the whole backstory, and you guys were mind blown. So.
I was amazed. I was amazed. But that's really cool that we were able to provide an opportunity, through just the network, and then it sort of, opened the doors for you for a couple of years.
It was like an epically amazing job, and a great person to work for, it was awesome. It worked out so well in so many ways. Actually.
So you finished up that job. Obviously, it was a beautiful build and everything, but then you've stepped across back into commercial. So you were in commercial, and then you went back to resi, and then you took on a bit of a foreman role. So what sort of took you back to the commercial game, and what's so different about working in these high rises compared to what you're doing out on site back a couple of years ago?
The reason to jump across was because of management. While still studying my diploma, I noticed that I still had a bit of a way to go with management. I wasn't quite 100% on how I thought that I was running my business, and I'd love to jump in with someone big who would have big, like, amazing processes. And it wasn't long until, like, a friend was like, "Oh, you should come work for our company." He was one of the architects working for the Pace Building group. So he sort of helped me get my foot in the door. I went in, had the interview, and was hired on pretty much on the spot from the construction manager there, who I had no idea. So I don't know this world very well, but very, very highly respected person in building in Melbourne. And I think a lot of the background on these, the high-end residential and, the restaurants and things like that actually helped that sort of leg up, because I didn't know it at the time, but it was this building company's headquarters that we were building.
Yeah, right.
So
that's exciting.
Pretty prestigious, and I was I was gobsmacked to even be a part of a team like that. And we were just a team of 4, and there was a 12-story build, a restaurant on the top, restaurant on the ground floor, and then a big wellness centre in the mezzanine, and office spaces. So it's pretty amazing.
I've always been amazed to sort of try and, I guess I want to ask the question about how there's a difference between, when you're working in residential and when you've got, like, what a good day's work looks like on a residential site compared to when you're in commercial and you've got so many moving parts. What does a good day on site look like in commercial compared to a good day out on site in resi? Because you can sort of see things come together. Residential's maybe on the smaller scale,
Essentially, there's maybe less amount of guys in residential, but it's still the same amount of work, but everything's scaled. I would say it looks quite similar. You're still running the same amount of guys, all the service trades, plasterers, carpenters, all that sort of stuff at the same time, but it's a bit probably a lot more fast-paced.
And what do you think some of the main differences, you said, like, obviously the work itself is pretty similar, but what do you think some of the main differences are for, if there's any resi carpenters out there that wanted to take the leap into commercial, or, what are some of the benefits of it? What in your opinion?
Well, the difference between commercial carpentry and residential, I think it depends on the type of work that you would like doing. So the first thing I noticed was almost a cookie cutter of the same thing that you would learn at the start. So if you learnt, to do architraves or something, I've learnt that you kind of, I wouldn't say pigeonhole yourself into that sort of area or aspect, but it's where you've got to do volumes of the same work over and over and over. And I found that residential moves a little bit faster, because I guess it's like a smaller build. And when I say move faster, I think it's, for example, you're working on architraves for a less amount of time and before you're jumping onto something else, hanging doors, or doing some some joinery or something like this, But if you're doing that in commercial, you're going from level 1, architraves, straight up to level 2, architraves over X amount of
12 floors.
But X amount of apartments as well, and it's quite repetitious.
What about I've always been interested, from someone who does a lot of self-education, and I feel like you've always been, you've sort of studied the game, I guess, from your early days, and you've always been very interested in, new sustainable products and, new sort of ways of building and stuff like that. What do you think defines, like, a good builder, and what makes like a good builder great?
I think a lot of it's mainly based on relationships. I think it's the relationship and the trust that you can build with people. If you can maintain and build relationships, but keep everyone working, maintains their fairness, I think that's one of the main keys.
What about any builders or anyone that you've sort of worked for in the past that you sort of admired? Like, what kind of...
I've admired everyone, I think. Literally everyone that I've worked for or come across or cross paths with. A whole bunch of mentors. Like I said, my older brother was one of my main mentors. We're from building that childhood home, and then even past then has been that family carpenter or builder that I kind of aspired to be. Pretty much everyone along the way. I thought my boss was great. I always would love to have his skill level. And then even the guys I've worked with, like the project managers or the construction managers or even the owners of the company, things that they seem to spot. I noticed that you can kind of tell the time and how calculated they are in their responses and what's come out of that. You can tell absolute wealth, even generational wealth has come through, to get us to these sort of points. And I love being able to take and adapt, sort of adjust myself from things that I've learnt from those guys. Yeah.
What is it in recent sort of months and, over maybe the past sort of 6 to 12 months that you've seen that's changed within construction, or what do you think's coming next that you might be excited about?
Yeah, well, I've got a few actually there, but from watching on the sidelines, I guess, or in the mix. It depends how you want to put it. So I did enjoy the Victorian housing government scheme that's going on at the moment. So set allocations of money are going into all these new high-rises that are getting built, right? Obviously, we've got a housing shortage here in Victoria, or if not Australia. But this set amount of money, I've noticed some real amazing things. So they've been offering it to other builders, but the builders get to design and build these sort of buildings, of course, within council limitations. But the products that are coming out of these are really amazing, sort of strategically planned things from either architects or the builders or the designers, everyone sort of along the way, using the same amount of money to create these, amazingly livable spaces. And I thought that was really, really cool where, Fitzroy at the moment, there's a whole bunch being built in there. North Melbourne, there's a whole bunch coming up at the moment. All of them look that little bit different, but they're all, sort of capped at that same price point, which I think is awesome. So that was one cool thing to see. Obviously, there's a massive tech boom happening. So Cremorne in Melbourne's trying to become this big
It's like a new
tech.
San Francisco.
Yeah, well, the Silicon Valley or something.
Yeah,
it's like the Melbourne's Silicon Valley sort of area. So they're building up big time, and there's amazing office spaces.
What do you think of tech in the construction industry and sort
I
of
love it.
You love it?
Yeah, I think it's awesome.
What's some of the real cool stuff that you've seen with tech or with software, recently that's wouldn't have existed 5 years ago?
A couple of the programs that we use, there's a couple that we use on site that are safety based, which is good, obviously, to keep track of people who are on site, make sure that they're, all their safety swims and
they're all
things
inducted
like this.
and stuff.
They're all 100% in and on board. So that's been pretty cool. Like your one-stop shop. It's all straight on your phone. I can bring up plans, or I can add photos, or send defects to people. I thought that's awesome, and it just links everyone else back in as well. So things that are relevant in a heartbeat. You can let someone and their whole team know, hey, this thing needs work, or this thing's amazing, we need to replicate this in other areas. And so that's pretty cool.
Do you think that people shouldn't shy away from it as well? Because I think...
No, not at all. It was a really, really cool one that I had a lot of fun with. The Inside Building Expo that you guys were at as well. I was walking around with this guy, and he had this kind of like a sonar/LiDAR detector thing on top of his, it was like a wearable frame. And we were walking around through a building. Well, it was through bloody Jeff's shed. And it was just picking up all this detection, and we were watching this screen as we were walking around in real time, and it's literally pinging every little measurement and, just notable thing in every single room, and putting it in real time onto this screen to send back over to his computer. Including measurements, like distances, wherever you are in this point, it had everything measured out. And I thought that was incredible, and your mind just starts racing on how many applications you could use that for. But then he started showing me the layering that he could do. And then I was blown away, because I was obviously working in this high-rise sort of office building at the time, and thinking that, wow, like if I walked through this building when it was all just still high-level rough-in, like all the mechanicals and plumbing and all the services had gone up into the ceiling, and I could walk through with this machine before the plasterers plaster up, right? Or even walk through a building, a home, before the plasterers put the ceiling on or the walls. You could walk through the frame, and it would take dimensions and locate where every service pipe is, where every cable is internally of the wall, power points, everything, how it was all run. It measured and mapped all that out. But then you could do it again afterwards and still walk through. Like, imagine walking through this room right now and knowing, oh, there's a cable right here already, the studs are here,
there's a pipe working here.
The studs are there. You can literally find everything in a heartbeat, but on your screen, just flicking back through the stages of the room from the location you're standing on. And my brain was just going wild.
That's cool.
I was like, oh my God, like everywhere should have that.
Yeah.
I'm sure it costs $1 billion. I don't know if it's cheap just yet, but I think, but that interaction, I was chatting obviously with the guy, and they're trying to interact that with all these other building programs, especially the big popular ones that everyone's using. So,
that's
mate,
cool.
wouldn't that'd be awesome.
What other cool stuff? You said there was 3 things. So you said that tech's the big one. What's the last thing that you're sort of excited to see, in the next sort of 6 to 12 months?
Well, the big housing boom. It's not just the affordable housing was the one, but just all these new big buildings that are coming up. So it was almost the Great Wall of St Kilda. So St Kilda's building up big time. The company I'm working for has got a massive build there at the moment. But Frankston's about to build up. So right along this foreshore, they're calling it the Great Wall of Frankston.
Oh, wow.
It's all going to be big, giant apartment complexes starting from the hospital and working its way back up sort of Nepean Highway. But big blocks and just big, beautiful buildings. I think they're all awesome. Like, from all the guys I've been following online and some of the companies I've worked for, they're all going to win awards, like Master Builders Association, on design, intent, and creative spaces, but they aren't just homes as well. It looks like so much more thought's being put into them, where they're becoming, if little sort of micro cities in themselves, like incorporating playgrounds for all the residents, incorporating, common areas like pools or rooftop barbecues, all this sort of stuff. Almost every single building has an aspect like this, where it's looking to care and cater for the people who actually live there, where it isn't just walk into your apartment and that's all you get. Yeah.
No, that's
really incredible. Yeah,
it's going to be cool to see sort of how it changes and what's to come in the next little while. But I think what we're excited about as well is I think there's some more push on like passive houses and sort of learning about the sustainability side of things. Like, what's your...
I love to follow that too. Yeah. So many different ways that these things are coming out. Like ventilation has been one that I've been following recently, and it's fresh on my mind. So how people are using different types of ventilation, but then different scientists or different people studying the passive houses. Do you need the ventilation, or are you fully, sealing your home as a single cell where it never changes temperature up or down? It's an interesting time because so many different studies are happening, and with Australia and especially Melbourne and the crazy weather we're having today. Like it was a hot morning for some reason in the middle of winter. It was 17 degrees at 8:30 this morning. And then dropped down to 10 and absolutely started hammering down with hurricane winds. And it's still cold outside, but now the sun's back out.
Yeah, so, I don't know, that really doesn't make sense.
But how does that work and interact with this home? So if you're vented or have ventilation, say from the eave here, and then there's a fan in the back room trying to push and circulate the air through, what effect does that have on the internal spaces, like the internal areas of the walls? What's it doing in the ceiling? Is it creating condensation? How are you eliminating that condensation? If it's a sealed cell, is that creating its own condensation? How do we get rid of that? What's happening? What's happening throughout the life of this building? And,
well, why do you think, being in Melbourne, right? You'd know this very well. But why are we so against, like proper insulation and double glazed windows and all of these things? Because especially like my house is about 13 years old, and I feel like it's either too hot, too cold, and you can't win. You really can't win. And you have people from Europe, because one of my cousins is German, and she's come over here, and she comes into the house and she's like, "Oh, it's so cold." Like, what's? She doesn't understand why we don't have better systems in place. But being someone who's been in building for so long, like, is there changes that are happening in that space, or is it just there's a certain code that people build to and they don't really care to go that extra mile?
That's exactly right. So we were beholden to a light building code, many years back, where majority of the houses were built, 70s, 80s, 60s, 70s, 80s. They did have a light standard building code, and it just wasn't a thing. They thought, the tin roof, it was a straight tin roof, open ceiling, and then just having two layers they thought was enough. So in essence, that did have its own little passive quality of plasterboard, timber rafter, and then just straight onto a tin roof. But with the sun beating down, of course, that roof space is cooking hot, you know, like a full oven, and of course it was transferring through. I just don't think that the research, you know, the R&D, I don't think ever happened that much. And, you know, the airflow underneath our houses, underneath the verandas and things like that, I just don't think we really knew. Like, I know that in England, they've had they're like triple glazed now, you know, they're battening down for the snow, everything. I wouldn't say that Australia's against it. I think it's pricey, especially if you want to renovate nowadays, and you know, the cost of materials, everything's up. My house still is ice cold, like constantly. I'm always, like you said, I'm either freezing or boiling, and that's what my wife says. She's always, you're either freezing or boiling, you're never in between.
So true.
I live up in the top of the mountain too, and my house doesn't have insulation, and it's things I obviously need to get onto, but
the heat just escapes like straight away.
Of course, but you know, you want to maintain that, and then of course the way that how are you getting that heat as well? Is it electricity? Are you using gas? You know, you can lower your bills, you can be more efficient, and I think it's just efficiency in so many other ways. So people should be all for it, but I do believe that the price point, you know, to get those things done,
is what makes it tricky.
It's tough to lay it all out on the table.
Well, one of my builder mates told me that because there's no sisolation, like there's no roof under my roof sheets. It's just open, just got the colour bond and then the insulation on the top, and that's it. There's no blanket or anything that protects. And he told me, he goes, look, you'd be worse off putting the insulation in, you know, having to take off each sheet and then sort of install it and stuff. He goes, you might as well just pay your bills for he goes, look, it would take a while for you to sort of recoup what you'd be missing out on, you know, from just because of how to install that, you know, on your roof. And he's like, I did it to my place, he goes, but I wouldn't pay someone else to do it.
Well, that's the thing, right. We all became builders and carpenters so we could do it ourselves, at any time. There's a lot of ways to look at it, to be honest, and like I said before, there's 100, if not 1,000, or probably 1 million now, different ways to try and utilise things like this to save money, save energy, you know, and keep warm, keep cool. If need be,
What's something that keeps you motivated after all these years, you know? Is it education? Is it, you know, just the love of the trade? Like what?
A lot of it, a lot of passion as well, So I think building and carpentry has always been one of those, the biggest bang for your buck type thing that, at least that I've experienced, right? So, you know, after a year or, you know, 6 months to a year, or sometimes 2 years, where you can stand back and say, like, that was a field. Now all of a sudden there's this giant building there, you know, so much money and resources, hard work, labour, amazing friendships and everything have all happened in this to create this giant thing, you know, and a lot of them are amazing.
You like to see that your work's standing there, you know, years down the track as well.
Some of my favourite ones are where, of course, personally with carpentry, some of the residential ones were my favourite, right? And that's because I got to use amazing materials. I got to build these things with my hand, and it was really special and something really special for that owner. So that homeowner, you know, just, you're building their dreams, right?
Definitely.
And they've worked their whole life for this thing. It's the one thing they want, you know, to be amazing, to be perfect and stuff like that. And that was always like really heartfelt, you know, thing to be able to create something for someone like that and for them to be able to, of course, use that space or thing or whatever it was. But then the crux with that is that they're the person who gets to enjoy it. But then I've got this second love in the commercial area where I'm building some of these restaurants and stuff like that. The amazing creative flair that they used to give us. Like we did this ice cream place in St Kilda, and they wanted it to sort of be like a yellow submarine and free, you know, just let us go with our artistic flair, and we're you know, painting the place and creating portholes everywhere and all this sort of stuff. And then you don't get that sort of, you know, that sort of thing to happen often, you know. But then people go to that place, so a lot more people get to enjoy that space, or you know, some of the fancy restaurants in Melbourne, and
or even you get to go there and have a meal as well.
Exactly, and I do get to go back, and enjoy these spaces with family, friends, or when someone says, I had this amazing dinner at this lovely restaurant, you know, and it was in this area, and what was it called? And then, you know, they tell you, and you're what do you think of the space? You know, wasn't it beautifully ambient? You know, what a space to be in, and then you know, sort of bleed into it. But you know, things like that, I always thought was amazing. You know, a lot of pride.
I love it, and you can tell that you're passionate and that you're prideful about what you're doing. You know, I feel like that's always come through in the years that we've sort of been working together, and that's definitely a big positive about you and who you are, mate. What's a myth in building that you'd like to bust? Is there any myths out there that you think are just
hundreds? Yeah. There's heaps. But I think the biggest one, the myth that the builder knows everything. No, I don't think that anyone knows everything. I think that the easiest way to bust that is for everyone to think, nah, that person, they know some stuff, but they rely, and there's one massive thing that I've learned is you've got to rely on the experts. You need to know how to find the answers. You don't have to have the answers, you need to know where to find them. It's like they teach you, to try and learn the full National Construction Code. No way are you going to remember every single page in that book. Not a chance. They just want you to know where to find it. And that bleeds right into carpentry, into building, into all this management. It's the myth that they know that one thing. The best way is to find out where to find those answers, ask the experts, and try and get them all in the same room together, and you'll come up with every single outcome that you wanted to achieve in a heartbeat. Okay. And that's one of the biggest, I reckon. One
of the last things I did want to ask you was, you've got such a good grasp on these industry associations, and sort of you've been studying the game for so long, and you've got such a love for it. What do you think about, you've been a long-term member of Carpentry Australia as well, and sort of what do you think about the support that we're able to give to our members, and what it sort of means to to have something like Carpentry Australia involved in your journey?
It was something that was non-existent, when I was doing all my apprenticeship, all that sort of stuff. It was great to have someone out there looking after the people going through this, or trying to set up a standard. So carpentry's always been one of those sort of trades that so regulated, and to have a company want to come and step in and hold the line for the carpenters, and people wanted to elevate, at least have a space or somewhere to talk about it, because there are where's a carpentry group that isn't Carpentry Australia? I don't know any. It's if not in your own personal, if you're employed with a carpenter or work as a carpenter, that's pretty much your group. But now you've really branched this out, it's a lot more, Australia-wide. As it were.
That's it. I love it. I love it. Well, it's been a pleasure to have you on as a member, and sort of look after you over these years, and see how you've grown from the smaller stuff all the way up to managing over 100 people now, and just doing some really, really big cool stuff. So thanks for being a part of it, mate, and looking after us, and we look forward to the next steps, mate.
Yeah, thank you very much.
No worries.
Cheers.
I appreciate you coming in as well.
All good, mate. Always nice to be back at the Lions Den.